When you're ready, Alex, go.
Why is The Catcher in the Rye still studied today? Why have 65 million copies been sold since its release in 1951, with over 250,000 copies still sold each year? J.D. Salinger captured an unknown voice, the teenager, which was not socially recognised at the time. You were a child and you grew up to be an adult. There was no in-between. This was one of the first novels to successfully depict the adolescent voice and chain of thought. Although many aspects of the novel are somewhat dated, it is obvious that the characteristics of the common teenager remain prevalent today. This is why Holden's monologue continues to be adored or hated, nonetheless studied by high school students all around the world. Today, a teenager is defined as a person aged between 13 and 19 years old. However, when Catcher in the Rye was published in 1951, it was the dawn of a new age, the rise of the teenager. It was seen to be a new social category and was the defining work of the meaning of adolescent. According to author Dr. Sarah Graham, it absolutely speaks to that moment the teenager emerges as a recognisable social group. It is the first novel of the modern teenage years. Throughout the novel, Holden, like many teenagers today, is alienated, directionless, and trying to find himself. The novel delves into the constant search for identity and the attitudes towards society, which continues to be prevalent for teenagers today. During this time of adolescence, teens begin to define their perceptions of the world and consider where they belong in it. During this process, they are constantly walking a fine line between childhood and adulthood, often flicking back and forth between the two for years. The attitudes towards society and one's search for themselves is effectively explored through Holden. We don't necessarily have to agree with the ways they are explored. He is nowhere near perfect, but we can all agree and respect the fact that from the second we open the front cover, we are taken on a journey of growing up and self-awareness. The teenage years are a unique period of growth and development, which are filled with excitement and new experiences. Everyone undergoes hormonal and physical changes, which contribute to forming one's sense of identity. Holden states early on in the novel, "I don't even know what I was running for. I felt like I was sort of disappearing." This use of foreshadowing is implemented to indicate what the remainder of the novel entails and his psychological state. During this period, Holden finds himself in limbo between being a child and an adult, which explains his venturesome and rebellious nature. The entire plot of the novel, beginning with his expulsion, further highlights this. According to Dr. Barton D. Schmidt's article, 10 Typical Characteristics of Teenagers, adventurous or risk-taking behaviour is not uncommon. Teens often have a need for excitement and adventure, which sometimes causes them to overlook the potential dangers involved in risk-taking activities. This 2013 article directly correlates with Holden's emotional state in 1951. Yet 62 years on, teens are still acting out during this period of their life in search of themselves. The world around us has physically changed, but the common characteristics of the teenager have remained over time. Although it may seem strange that so many people feel the need to observe the characteristics of this ordinary teenager to understand and articulate this search for identity, but Holden feels like someone we all know to some degree. We all find some sort of comfort in him, because at some stage in our lives we have felt exactly the same way. We have all thought about running away, about what would happen if we just disappeared. Salinger has not only perfectly captured the voice of the teenager through Holden, but he has successfully exposed the teenage voice within us all. The dialogue used effectively encapsulates this voice through the use of colloquial, everyday language, loose sentence structure, and informal connectives. These techniques enhance the discourse and make Holden's age more recognisable and relatable. He describes the adult world as phony, which is used 35 times throughout the novel. An overuse of repetition emphasises his hatred for certain aspects of the world, especially adulthood. Crazy is stated 77 times, with goddamn heard a total of 245 times. The blasphemous taboo language presents his frustration with the world and the strains associated with growing up. Salinger's ability to successfully implement these different techniques means that the character of Holden becomes more than merely a character on paper, but instead an imaginative figure that carries us along with him on a journey of growing up. An inordinate amount of pressure is placed upon teens to grow up, yet they are still treated as if they are children. The symbolism of the ducks continues to resonate with readers, where Holden repeatedly asks cab drivers, where do the ducks go during winter? Insinuating the real question of where do teenagers go after childhood? These overwhelming questions worry many teens, as so many want to grow up but are afraid of the resulting responsibilities. The USA Stage of School conducted a survey of 445 high school students to determine teenagers' most common fears. Of those surveyed, a total of 66%, that's 294 students, stated that they are most afraid of the future and the life that awaits them after graduation. In essence, growing up. Why do high school students around the globe still study this novel? Some would say, how many times do you call up a prostitute or roam the streets of New York City for days upon end by yourself? Instead of solely focusing on the events that Holden participates in, rather observe his emotions and characteristics. His mental state transcends time and continues to resonate with teenagers today. This novel is relevant in different ways to different people. Some may empathise with Holden's intense dislike for school, whereas others may have experienced a lack of oneself. Through the troubles and tribulations of growing up, he experiences common complications of a teenager in today's day and age. Yes, our lives are completely different to the teenagers of the 40s and 50s, but that does not make us any less complex, confused, or generally lost. Holden's rebellious search to understand himself and the world around him is something every human being must experience at least once in their life. Salinger's novel is as universal as it is timeless. We have been raised in different worlds to the intended audience, but Holden Caulfield remains as a relevant icon in both. We learn from Holden, we value Holden, we relate to Holden. Thank you.